Hey everyone, today we're digging into a really important question. Who gets left out of health research? Because when we miss certain voices, we end up creating a system that can fail the very people it's supposed to help. So let's get into it. So let me just ask you this straight up. When you think about a health study, who do you picture participating? And maybe more importantly, who isn't in that picture? Well, the hard truth is, there are whole groups of people who are just systematically left out. We're talking about individuals with intellectual disabilities, or ID for short, and people with serious and enduring mental health conditions, sometimes called SEMH. Their experiences, their needs, their unique points of view, they're just not there in the data that's supposed to be helping them. Now, you might think this is just, a simple mistake or a logistical problem. But it's not. It goes way deeper than that. This issue cuts right to the heart of the research process itself, to really fundamental ideas about power and, most of all, trust. And this quote, wow, it just says it all, doesn't it? For people who've been pushed to the margins time and time again, just showing up for a study requires this deep, genuine belief that it's actually for them, that it's truly about them, and not just another case of being studied like a specimen. So to really get this right, it all boils down to two huge challenges. First, we have to tear down that traditional power imbalance between the researcher in the lab coat and the participant. And second, and this is a big one, we have to completely shift our thinking to see trust building not as a nice-to-have intro, but as the first and most essential stage of the research itself. And that shift in thinking is easiest to understand when you compare two totally different ways of looking at involvement. Is it a one-time event? Or is it an ongoing process? Getting this distinction is really the key to unlocking a whole new, better way of doing research. Okay, before we go any further, let's quickly define a key term you're going to see, PPI. It stands for Public and Patient Involvement. And this isn't just about getting a little feedback at the end. It's about a real, active partnership between researchers and the public through the entire journey. And this is where you can really see the difference. The old way, the event model, sees involvement as just a box to be ticked, a one-time thing. But the new way, the process model, that's totally different. It's an ongoing partnership, something that's woven into every single stage. It's not top-down, it's a real collaborative journey. Okay, so we get the big idea, the philosophy behind the shift. But how do we actually do it? How does this work in the real world? Well, it all comes down to a really clear framework built on three key pillars. And these pillars aren't just random. They follow the natural life of any research project. It starts at the very beginning, with the research design. Then it moves into ethical approval. And it carries all the way through to how we find people and gather information. It's one continuous thread. So let's dive in and take a closer look at each one. The first pillar is all about participatory design, and this means inclusion has to start before a single word of the proposal is even written. It's about bringing participants, their caregivers, and their advocates to the table from day one to help decide what the research should even be about. This makes sure we're asking questions that genuinely matter to the community. Pillar 2 is about shaking up the whole ethical approval process. And this is a huge deal. It means we need to train the ethics committees so they actually get the specific needs of these groups. It means we need to put patients on those committees so their lived experience is right there in the room. And maybe the most powerful change of all is moving to ongoing consent, where consent isn't a form you sign and forget, but a conversation that continues through the whole study. All right, our third pillar is all about one word, flexibility. This is where the rubber meets the road. It means giving people lots of ways to participate, whether that's in person, online, on the phone, whatever works for them. It means being flexible with time and making sure they're not out of pocket for travel. And critically, it means cutting down on gatekeeping. When access is super tightly controlled by someone else. We want to build direct, trusting relationships with people. And still under this pillar, communication is just, well, it's everything. We're talking about using simple, plain language, using tools like picture boards so people can express themselves in different ways, breaking down big, complicated questions into smaller, bite-sized chunks, and just being human, allowing for shorter interviews, more breaks, and creating an environment where people feel safe and respected. And that brings us to this final thought. The real shift is from doing research on people to doing research with people. Because if research is truly supposed to be for everyone, then shouldn't it be by everyone too?